Welcome to Infectious Diseases TV. We share useful information about infectious diseases. Today we're diving into one of the oldest pieces of health advice in the book, taking vitamin C for the common cold. But is it a medical marvel or just a long-standing myth? Let's break down the science and find out what's really going on. You've heard this a million times, right? From your parents, your friends, probably everywhere. The second you get that tiny scratch in your throat, what's the first thing people say? Load up on vitamin C. It's become this automatic go-to response for so many of us. So here's the real question. Is this solid scientific advice, or is it more like folklore that we just keep passing down? We're going to separate the hype from the actual hard evidence.
So where did this whole craze even start? Well, you can trace a lot of it back to the 1970s and a Nobel Prize winner named Linus Pauling. He published a book promoting high-dose vitamin C, and the idea just completely exploded. It kicked off a global debate that's been going on for decades.
And you can see why the idea made so much sense. Biologically, it lines up. Vitamin C is essential. Our bodies need it, but they can't produce it. It's a key player in our immune system, helping our white blood cells do their job. So the thinking was, hey, if a little is good, a ton of it must be like a superweapon against colds. But does the science actually back that up?
First things first, let's talk prevention. Can taking vitamin C every day act like a shield and stop you from catching a cold in the first place? Well, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. It really depends on who you are.
For most of us, for the general population, the research is pretty clear. Taking a daily vitamin C supplement isn't going to reduce the number of colds you get. But, and this is a really fascinating but, for a very specific group of people, the story is completely different.
Caption: relative risk of catching a cold for the general population taking daily vitamin C versus a placebo. A statistically insignificant difference. This number right here, 0.97, kind of tells the whole story for most people. It's a measure of relative risk. It basically means that for every 100 people taking a placebo who caught a cold, 97 people taking vitamin C also caught a cold. That's so close it's considered statistically insignificant. The shield just isn't there. But then you see this number, a 50% reduction. That is a massive difference. And it applies to people under intense short-term physical stress. Think marathon runners, soldiers doing Arctic exercises, competitive skiers. For them, daily vitamin C literally cut their risk of getting a cold in half. It's a huge deal for them. For the rest of us, not so much.
Okay, so prevention is out for most of us. But what about treatment? What if you're already sick? You've got the sniffles, you're feeling awful. Can chugging orange juice or taking a supplement now help you get better any faster?
Well, the science on this is pretty consistent. If you wait until you're already coughing and sneezing to start taking vitamin C, it's likely too late to make a difference. The evidence just doesn't show any reliable benefit in shortening your cold or making it less severe if you start after the fact.
Now, there is a small little asterisk here. A few studies suggested there might be a tiny benefit, but only if you follow 3 really specific rules. You have to start taking it within the first 24 hours of symptoms, you have to keep taking it for at least 5 days, and you have to take a high dose. We're talking several grams per day. You miss any of those and the effect basically vanishes.
So if it doesn't really prevent colds for most people and it doesn't really treat them either, is the whole thing a bust? Well, no, not exactly. This is where it gets interesting. It turns out that taking it regularly does have some small but real measurable benefits for when you do get sick. So look at this. For people who take vitamin C every day as a habit, when they do catch a cold, it tends to be a little shorter. For adults, it's about an 8% reduction in length. That might be about half a day off a week-long cold. And for kids, the effect is even stronger, a 14% reduction. That could mean a full day less of being sick.
And it's not just about how long the cold lasts. Regular intake also seems to just dial down the misery a little bit. It might reduce the overall severity of your symptoms. You won't feel fantastic, but that sore throat might not be quite as bad.
So let's bring this all back to you. What's the practical takeaway? Let's talk about who really benefits from supplementing, how much you should be thinking about, and if there are any risks.
So we know the big winners are those people under extreme physical stress. But there are other groups who might benefit too. Smokers, for example, tend to have lower levels of vitamin C in their bodies, and the elderly might not get enough in their diet or might not absorb it as well, so supplementation could be helpful for them too.
This chart really puts the dosage into perspective. The recommended daily allowance is only about 75 to 100 milligrams. That's what you get in one orange. But the studies that showed those modest benefits, they were using 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams. That's a massive difference, and you're pretty much only going to get that from supplements.
And that 2,000 milligram number is really important. That's considered the tolerable upper limit. It's not dangerous, but if you go past that, your body just can't absorb it all, and it can lead to some unpleasant side effects like an upset stomach.
Okay, let's pull all of this together. After decades and decades of research, what is the final verdict on vitamin C and the common cold? I think this is the absolute best way to think about it. Vitamin C is not a force field. It's not going to stop a cold virus from getting to you. It's more like body armor. It won't prevent the hit, but it can lessen the blow, reducing the damage and making the whole thing a little more bearable.
So, let's answer our original question. Is vitamin C a total myth? No, not at all. But have its powers been a little bit exaggerated over the years? Absolutely. The reality is this: it's a very low-risk, low-cost tool that, if you take it regularly, might make your inevitable cold a little shorter and a little less severe. It's not the hero of the story, but it's a pretty good helper. And when you're feeling awful, a little help can go a long way. This is Infectious Diseases TV. Please like and subscribe.